Hi, I'm Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of Regulators. Happy birthday to me, and welcome to this week's Regulatory Roundup. If you'd like to give me a present, go ahead and click share on this video. I'm going to spend today talking a little bit about some of my heroes, and if any of them actually repost or comment on this video because of you, I will personally send you a cupcake. This week, there were 1,839 alerts from 346 unique U.S. regulators, and 301 had to do with coronavirus. 11 alerts honored the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. May she rest in peace. 9 alerts shared support or concern over the new nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. The regulator of the week is New York, beginning with Superintendent of New York Department of Financial Institutions, Linda A. Lacewell, and a most honorable mention to Attorney General Letitia James. Many of you know I'm already obsessed with Hester Pierce of the SEC, but I have to say, no matter your politics, the work these two women are doing is novel, courageous, and impressive. Let's begin with a little background, which is that New York has not loved a lot of moves by the federal government lately. There have been suits against the U.S. Postal Service, the OCC, Trump personally for his finances. There have also been huge fines, including $150 million against Deutsche Bank for involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, a major suit against opioid producers, and this week, a $22 million fine of Novartis. This morning, I noticed there was a cryptic media alert from the FTC talking about an upcoming major sweep. So I dialed in because, hey, the number was there. And on the phone was Attorney General Letitia James as a lead spokesperson for a multi-agency and multi-state effort to go after companies with illegal debt collection practices. And this leads to the topic of the week, which is state power. Having read every single regulatory alert since 2019, the pandemic really underscored the relationship between the state and federal government. Last week, I reported that the SEC declined to include climate risk as a required disclosure for investors. Well, the New York Department of Financial Institutions proceeded to issue a letter explaining its expectations about how institutions should be managing the financial risks associated with climate change. The OCC issued a national fintech charter that was ultimately rejected in federal court. Then they recently proposed a payments charter. And of course, there was also the true lender rule that I covered a few weeks ago. Well, the Conference of State Bank Supervisors continued to lobby against the federal body on all of the above and responded with its own unified exam for money transmitters operating in 40 of the 50 states. Also, the governor of California signed 12 bills this week to protect consumers from financial predators and abusive business practices. The California DBO will now officially become the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation and is supposed to be California's version of the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The governor also formally signed the California Consumer Privacy Act of 2018, and it is effective immediately. So for those of you following privacy, the CCPA is officially live. For those of you following cannabis, Colorado has extended its 2014 Farm Bill, including an extension of the hemp pilot program. The CDC decided to study Oregon's legal retail marijuana market and recently provided a study of youth exposure to marijuana advertising. The Oregon Health Authority issued temporary rules to help with cannabis testing during the pandemic since normal testers can't travel and it's illegal to bring cannabis across state lines. The FDA is hosting a public meeting about CBD and cannabinoids, specifically about the differences in use and responses by gender and sex. For those of you following climate regs, the California Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order this week requiring sales of all new passenger vehicles to be zero emission by 2035. Michigan announced it's going to be completely carbon neutral by 2050. Connecticut unveiled its first battery electric public transit buses. New York's governor announced the unveiling of its first ever electric vehicle fast charging hub located in mid-Hudson Valley. And since we're on micromobility and transportation, the USDA Forest Service is proposing to revise its directives to update and clarify guidance on management of electric bicycles, or e-bikes, used on the National Forest System lands. In Compliance Corner, for those of you following the alphabet soup of AML, KYC, BSA, and the Patriot Act, FinCEN is on a tear right now, revamping some of those rules. So don't be caught by surprise and sign up for our alerts so you know what is going on there. The SEC is proposing changes to the fixed income market to update rules on alternative trading systems for U.S. government securities, including repo and reverse repo. The meeting to discuss is actually today at 10 a.m. Eastern, so hopefully you're seeing this early enough to still catch it. The North American Securities Administrators Association took a look at how state practices have changed since the SEC's best interest rule. It's just in time for the SEC roundtable on regulation best interest in Form CRS, which is on October 26th. The chairman of the SEC, Jay Clayton, noted this week in a speech that best interest still does not officially apply to retail investors in self-directed IRAs and wondered aloud if the SEC needed to fix that. The Financial Stability Oversight Council met this week, which led to a number of RRP-related rule changes. The CFTC proposed amendments to bankruptcy for commodity brokers, and thanks to the comments they received, they're actually adding in some clarity around resolution planning. The FDIC Systemic Resolution Advisory Committee will be hosting a meeting to discuss their progress on systemic resolution on October 30th. In addition to adopting amendments to their latest whistleblower proposal, which had, of course, varying views on its efficacy, the SEC also adopted amendments around when shareholders can propose votes. On the balance, it appears that it's harder for activist investors to get standing, for better or for worse. The FTC is looking for public comment on changes they want to make to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. They added a section that gives consumers more rights relative to their credit information. I would put this squarely in the data privacy team's hands. In non-financial compliance, but very important, the Department of Labor is proposing a rule that clarifies the difference between employee and independent contractor. So employment lawyers and HR people, be sure to check that out. For those of you following crypto, the CFTC brought a case against a company registered in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for offering illegal leverage transactions in Ether, Litecoin, and Bitcoin. The SEC shut down another unregistered offer and sale of digital asset securities with fraudulent misrepresentations in an ICO. The National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence is seeking feedback from small and medium-sized AI firms to help them understand different views on working with the federal government. In our Fine Tracker this week, the CFTC and 30 states charged a set of California-based precious metals dealers for a $185 million fraud targeting the elderly. Credit Suisse got busted by the SEC for incomplete and deficient electronic blue sheets and has to pay a $600,000 fine. The CFTC also fined a bunch of unique entities, including futures commission merchants and introducing brokers, for net capital deficiencies. Here's a fun one. A 4-time bank robber in Rhode Island who was on federally supervised release for prison got caught by the FDIC for filing fraudulent loan applications seeking more than $4.7 million in Paycheck Protection Program loans. And he actually managed to get $600,000 with no proof of tax or bank records. The big $586 million Western Union case was finally closed out, with the second round of refunds going out this week. One of the FTC suits I've talked about before here, which had to do with a voice over internet protocol service provider, settled this week for $2.1 million. This company allowed robocalls offering bogus credit card relief through their service. And so this is just another point that if you do not think you have a compliance responsibility over the content of your software or product, you need to think again. And one of the best ways to protect yourself is to know what's going on by subscribing to a regulatory alerts tool like Regulator. That's it this week for Regulator US Alerts Birthday Edition. Join us every Wednesday morning on LinkedIn, and for the longer version, see us on YouTube.